from the top.
Hello again for the what time now?
Third time,
Third
I
time?
think?
Third time? All right.
Roughly.
Yeah, something like that. Some undetermined number of times. Ah, good. We've got
Sweet, good to go.
we've got the music glitch this time, so there will be no
Oh,
music
lovely.
for the first minute of the game or so, just the sound effects, and it sounds awkwardly quiet.
Yeah, that's an annoying one to work on. We've
Yeah, I don't.
thought that we fixed it on no less than 3 separate occasions.
Yep. Well, I am not playing on any of your versions, so
Nope, this is 1.1. Good old classic, keep it consistent for the run.
technically it's 1.1.2.
Yeah, it's a tiny bug
Yeah,
patch.
two very small bugs were fixed. One of which, is whatever. The other of which makes about 10 minutes of the run really, really, really annoying.
Yeah, because it's just audio and visual bugs that have nothing to do with actual movement.
Yep. Alright, so that was our first Metroid fight. And we've got music back.
Sweet.
There, now the game sounds proper. Oops. So.
Alright, so, to resume our kind of summary from the first time, since you guys probably couldn't hear either of us at all.
Yep.
This is AM2R, a fan-made remake of Metroid 2, seeking to bring it to a more accessible, modern format, following the Zero Mission and Fusion styles of gameplay, but with a lot more polish on it. So, for me personally, the physics feel a lot like they're kind of halfway between the snappiness of Zero Mission and Fusion and the fluidity, the momentum conservation of Super Metroid.
Yep, there's a little bit of both in this game. So it's not really going to come into play quite yet. Right now it's basically the same idea as the GBA Metroid games in terms of movement. We're morph balling everywhere because, like original Metroid 2, morph ball moves faster than running. So most of the first maybe about 20 minutes of the game are going to involve me just kind of rolling around everywhere. So, and also, if you're familiar with the original Metroid 2 and how it's laid out, this game is laid out very, very similarly. So it's separated into kind of distinct areas, and you're free to move within those areas until you kill all of the Metroids in that area. So there's our first major upgrade, the bombs. You'll notice we can skip the item fanfare. So that'll definitely save a bunch of time and make the run a lot more action-packed.
Yep, one thing that you guys will maybe have noticed there is that John is shooting at bombs to detonate them early. There was actually a little mechanic that Doc, the original creator of AM2R, tried out pretty early on in development. Was going to remove it, but just kind of forgot about it, and now it's one of the most used speedrun techs.
Yep. So the other thing you might have noticed is that when I shoot missiles at things, they actually have a blast radius. So we'll be using that in a few spots to kind of hit things that we otherwise wouldn't necessarily be able to hit. Or, oops. Dropping a few wall jumps here. Classic Metroid speedrun. And just like other Metroid games, we've got bomb jumping in this game. And it's a little more flexible, as you can see. I went from straight bomb jumps to diagonal left to diagonal right. So There's a lot you can do with bomb jumps, but there actually aren't a lot of bomb jumps in the run. And there's the missile explosion radius I was talking about earlier. This is kind of the second puzzle of sorts. It's a little more obvious out at the front than the first one was to get that first E-tank.
There's a specific order that you have to shoot those in. So obviously John has those memorized, but for a first-time player, that would be a lot more.
Yep. So that's all we're gonna do there. Now we're gonna head down to what we call the breeding grounds. And
You may have noticed that John was what looked like skipping a couple items back there, which may leave some people scratching their heads, as this is a 100% run. But AM2R does have a bit of a fast travel system for going backwards. So a lot of these items are faster to get on cleanup when we have better movement abilities at our disposal.
Alright, so yeah, this guy opted not to behave. But that's okay. That's the first Metroid that will start trying to dodge your missile shots. But by timing them and positioning them very carefully, you can make the Metroid just dodge right into your missiles, so... And right there maybe you saw me use a system that's very similar to Super Metroid's Moonwalk, but a little more flexible, because you can move forward and backward with it. It basically just locks your aim in a very specific direction. I'll use that a little more later on, too. Oops, that's fine. So as you can see, health is at a little bit of a premium at this part of the game because I skipped that extra E-tank earlier.
The missile count is pretty forgiving, though.
Yeah, there's plenty of missiles to be spared in this category. There's a few spots where ammo management comes into play, but we are not there yet. So this is the first... Yep, sorry.
That's almost always... Sorry, that's almost always going to be with your more limited ammunition resources, like super missiles and power.
Yep. So this is our first mini-boss here. Each area has like a little mini-boss in it. Okay. This one you basically just shoot until he dies and dodge his attacks. There's not much going on here. Except that my missile spam is way off. So now with that, we're on our way. I'm going to try to conserve these 4 missiles, because there are a few spots where they're really nice to have. Right there is one of them. Take a nice little shortcut there. Now we're coming up to Area 2, or as it's also known, the Hydro Station. Each area kind of has its own name, and we're gonna just ignore this guy because we can't kill him with 2 missiles. And even if we could, it's faster to kill him on the way out. Anyway.
More leverage of the pretty lenient bomb jump.
Yep. That's one of the bigger bomb jumps in the game. We'll just kill that guy to be safe. This wall is notoriously difficult to climb up. I fumbled it a little bit at the end, but got through it just the same. Alright, so this is the second mini-boss we'll be seeing, and this is Arachnus.
Returning from the original Metroid 2.
Yep. He works a little bit differently in this game, though. You have to shoot him a bunch to get him to roll, and then you use your bombs to bounce him up into those electrified spikes, I guess you'd call them. like most things Nintendo related, he has 3 phases. And there's a couple ways you can kind of speed this fight up, and I was unfortunately not actually able to do any of them because of the patterns he gave me.
That's typically in bomb positioning and getting him to bounce up into the spikes, right?
Yep. So he gives us the spring ball. The spring ball is an enormously important movement item in this game. And we won't actually be seeing that for a little bit yet. For now, it saves... Right now, it just saves a little bit of time because I don't have to unmorph jump every time I want to jump. I can just stay in morph ball and do that. This is the wave beam, featuring easily the worst hitbox in this game, which hopefully doesn't actually come into play. Now we're just doing a bit of item collecting. We're picking up high jump. High jump, also a hugely important movement item, like it is in basically every Metroid game. Just it speeds up every single jump. Not quite. That's okay. That's a really tight wall jump.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the high jump in here is a lot more powerful than in Zero Mission or Fusion. It's more akin to Super Metroid's height, relatively.
Yeah, the height you get is absolutely enormous relative to Samus. It's kind of a combination of both, actually, because you get the same huge jump height from Super Metroid, and you also get the ridiculously fast acceleration at the start of your jump that Zero Mission and Fusion get. I was kind of hoping to skip that, but that's okay. You get to see the cool little water jet animation. So this Metroid also dodges, but by carefully positioning by carefully positioning the missiles, we can not do a good job of fighting the Metroid. This Metroid is special. I think he has different AI from some of the others. You could easily correlate that or prove that wrong.
Yeah, I am not directly aware if that one's any.
Okay, well, never mind.
Of all the things I've had to mess with, the Metroids have actually not been one. They're pretty solidly done, not a lot of issues. The only real issues with them are that some can get out of balance.
Yeah, Metroids can do some funky things sometimes. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Logical here is one of the people involved in the fan updates to the fan game. Continuing to update the game, add new stuff. So the randomizer, the fusion mode, all that sort of stuff.
Try to keep it mostly in line with what Doc was intending to add.
Yep.
But there's a couple things that, like the fusion difficulty, that weren't necessarily something he would.
Yeah, the fusion difficulty is pretty cool. So this is Breeding Grounds 2, which is a fair bit more complex than Breeding Grounds 1.
There's a lot of very precise platforming going on here that we're just ignoring and crawling through them.
Yeah. Oh boy. So you can see I'm being fairly unconcerned with my missile count. Just because every single missile tank I collect refills my missiles to full.
Ditto for energy tanks, super missile tanks, power bomb tanks.
Yep.
They all refill their respective thing, which is why John saved that energy tank until right then to grab, because he knew he was going to lose a lot of health from that one alpha.
And I need a lot of energy for this room. Alright. So this is our first Gamma Metroid, and he's not actually much of a challenge. He looks all big and intimidating, but that basically translates to it takes more missiles to kill him than it does the Alpha Metroids. You can see we can still very easily manipulate him into just not actually doing a good job of dodging the missiles. But what you saw me doing there was using the beam shot to bait him into dodging so that I could shoot him at my leisure without worrying about him dodging. Because the dodge has a cooldown of some number of seconds that I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's also iframes on the dodge, so just straight up missile spamming, you'll have a lot bounce off.
Yep. And depending on the situation, it's not always good to bounce a bunch of missiles. There's that guy we skipped for later. Just get rid of him nice and quick, and that's it for Area 2. We're making pretty good progress through planet SR388. There's a missile tank here. We're going to save this one for later. I don't think it's really any faster or slower to get it at any other point through this room. I just like the movement getting it later more. So you'll notice I am right back at full missiles here. That's going to be really useful. We're jumping here to kind of make sure those enemies that spawn are out of the way. Well, I'm jumping.
Yeah, the Pincher Flies there do a pretty hefty sum of damage without the fair, which was skipped back in Area 2.
Yep. We are saving the Varia suit and the whole area associated with it for later. As this is a 100% run, we will be collecting it. We're just not collecting it right now. So this is the Chorizo. He's a little different from when we last saw him in Super Metroid, and we're also going to be making use of the aim lock to basically just shoot him really rapidly. And I got the bad pattern. So ideally you'd want him over here when he dies. Oh no, he's still alive. Who saw that coming?
Cow. That was actually an incredibly fast first phase. I don't know that I've seen it done that quickly.
I'm out of ammo. So the reason I used bombs there was just one missile off from getting a quick kill. That's a shame. Everything but bombs actually deals only 1 damage to him when he's in that swoop phase. So this is actually one of the most challenging areas of the game.
It's also one of the most fun to watch.
Yeah, oh boy. Alright, we're just gonna default to the missile spam. So you can see what Logical was talking about a bunch of missiles just tinking off if you spam at gammas. Fortunately, I have so many of them, it doesn't really matter. I didn't quite get the strat there, that's okay. But now, we're getting the most important item in the game, the speed booster.
And this is where stuff starts to get great.
Dang it. Messed up the strat there. Yeah, speed booster is hands down the most important item in the game. There's just so much going on with it. So you can see there that something similar to Super Metroid's Mach Ball has made a return. We call it the Speed Ball because we only ever use it in Speed Booster. But
Yeah, there's not a ton since there's not a running state in AM2R outside of the speed booster. There's not much application for it.
Yep. And even if there was, we don't want the Morph Ball to take our regular running speed. If anything, we want our regular running to take the Morph Ball speed. So, but we're going to be using that extensively, and you can combine that with Spring Ball and Space Jump to just zoom around everywhere. There are a ton of speed booster tricks in this run. It's just so good. I can't say enough good things about it.
It's incredibly entertaining to watch and incredibly frustrating to continually fail at trying to do the runner tricks. So these are not easy to play.
Yeah, Speed Booster, if you've played other games, Speed Booster in the GBA games moves slow, but you can do a lot with it. Super Metroid Speed Booster, it's not quite as flexible in some ways, but it moves a lot faster. In this game, it's really flexible and it moves really fast, which can make it a bit of a challenge to control at some points.
So here we have a little bit of a mini game, what we call the Autoed mini game. This is a completely new addition to Metroid 2. Doc thought it'd be fun to throw in a little bit of a change here.
And this is actually a really frustrating thing to try and do quickly, because we have to try and catch a really tight cycle on all these pistons, I guess you'd call them. And I've messed up a bunch, so I'm totally gonna miss it, but... But this is, believe it or not, this is where we're going to get super missiles. And super missiles are also a really important upgrade.
Whereas regular missiles only deal 1 damage apiece to Metroid, super missiles will deal 5. So they are incredibly crucial in speeding through the Metroid fights.
Yes. And we won't see that immediately. Let's see, if I'm looking for a super drop here, oh, I got it, cool. So we will kind of get to see. Okay. I messed that up a little bit, but you can kind of see how the super missile just dispatches the Metroid so much more quickly than a regular missile. There's going to be a lot more of that coming up, and it's going to be a whole lot faster than that, because we basically at this point we will not have to use regular missiles on any Metroids, unless I seriously mess up, which we can't rule that out, but...
There's always the plausibility of the Metroid AIs being wacky, too.
Yep.
Oh, that was a nice speedball.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
Huh.
one little piece of tech to note is that the spider ball, whenever you hit a wall after shine sparking, you'll have a little bit of a delay, a couple frames after you crash into the wall that Samus is just frozen there.
Yep.
Activating the spider ball while in that state, though, immediately disables it. So when shine sparking, using a ball spark is a lot preferable sometimes to the regular spark, because it allows you to instantly cancel and start moving again.
Yep, exactly. I kind of have to be a little careful here. I actually don't have a lot of health. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna play this safe.
Marathon strats.
Yeah, I don't like playing it safe, and this is really slow, but it's a lot less slow than dying and having to restart from my last save, which was ages ago. Because if I hadn't gotten that speedball, then I would be going through a gauntlet of enemies, and that speedball is actually fairly difficult. I know it doesn't look like it, but...
AM2R is a game that has speedrun movement tech that looks really easy to pull off, but is actually notoriously quite difficult.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you're supposed to have the Varia suit in this area, and since I don't have it, everything hits like a truck. Oops, that was not quite what I wanted to do.
The normal strat through here is to actually reserve the spark all the way through the gamma fight, which is quite difficult, as getting hit by anything while you're in that pre-shine spark state will cancel.
Yep, that takes that from the GBA games. If you get hit while you're storing a spark, you lose the spark. But we're kind of coming up to a really long Space Boost speedball chain here that I messed up a little bit right at the very end. That's okay. Alright, I've taken a lot of damage, which I'm a bit less than okay with, but... So this area, this is Breeding Grounds 3.
Which is basically just a giant gauntlet of Gamma Metroids.
Yeah, this area has some really tight ammo management going on. I basically don't want to ever miss a super missile in this whole area. Because if this is actually a good time to talk about the drop system. And how exactly that works. But the general gist of it is, if I'm full on missiles, I won't get missiles. If I'm full on health, I won't get health. So you
Additionally worth noting is that there's only so many of a certain ammo type that can be on screen at once before it stops spawning more of those. So you can only have 2 super missile pickups on screen at a time. If the game would try to spawn any other ones, it just wouldn't place an item there.
Yep. So what that means in the speedrun is you can manipulate the drops a bit. If you're full on health and full on missiles, you're going to get super missiles. And that's kind of what we're trying to abuse throughout this whole area. And now that I've got that super missile tank, I'm full up on supers again, and that hopefully is all the munitions I need for the rest of this area.
Another ball spark for the quick cancel there.
Yep. And you can see here, against these gammas, we're going to be doing the same sort of thing, trying to lure their dodge. Okay, good. Almost didn't get that.
That one's really difficult to hit. It has some very aggressive dodges.
Yeah. Alright, so now we're done with this area. I forgot to... I completely blanked on doing the speed booster there. Whoops. It's alright. So now, you can space boost through this whole area, but I'm not particularly good at it. It's really, really hard.
It's really tight. So here's that missile tank John was talking about earlier.
Yep. So now we're kind of going around in a little bit of a loop here. I think original Metroid 2 does something similar to this.
It's pretty close.
Okay, well, never
Except
mind.
that it doesn't have speed booster, which is sad.
Right. So there's a little bit of lore going on here. This is meant to be the site of the research team that was talked about in the original Metroid 2 booklet. AM2R asserts that they were done in by a pair of Alpha Metroids, which I got rid of in no time at all. So I'm going to be farming these guys using our old friend Pseudo Screw Attack.
Yep, similar to the Prime games, the charge beam in AM2R draws in item pickups towards Sam.
Yep, I don't know why I broke spin there, but I did, so that spark wound up looking a little silly. Alright. So now we're going down to the mining area, I guess is... I don't know if that's an official term.
I typically call it the Cordite Mines, but I don't know if there's an official one.
Yeah, we use a mix of official and unofficial names to talk about stuff, so...
Not that there's necessarily official ones, as in stated in-game.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the first real break of the run. We got our own version of Shack Tool here. But this one gets interrupted by having to blow up one of those crystals. Alright. Yeah. Can do all of our social media stuff at this point in the game. Alright. Because now, the goal is to get a speed booster here and keep it for the next minute or so.
Yeah, grabbing that right there was pretty tight with a stutter in there. Similar to Super Metroid, but not really in the same way that Super Metroid works. AM2R does have a stuttering technique to be able to build up a speed booster in a smaller space.
Yep. Just rather than stuttering at the start of the speed boost, you stutter at the end. Oops. Messed that one up a little bit. That's okay. That was still plenty fast. Thanks to me having a bunch of supers. So if I were doing this in a PB attempt, I'd be looking for a bunch of super missiles here, and I'd really want to be at full health, because I need super missiles to try and skip a save. In the interest of marathon safety, I'm not going to skip that save, so I don't really care about my drops. Oops. That didn't quite go the way I'd hoped, but that's alright. It's not a big deal. So now...
you managed to get through the blocks, so...
Yep. Now we're free to progress deeper into the planet.
Yep, at this point, each of these little buzzsaw guys coming out of the walls, their official name is Scorp, but they do... what is it, half a tank?
Yeah, they do 50 damage a pop. So I'm
because
going...
you're expected to have Varia.
Yeah, so skipping this save means I have one fewer E-tank, which it's not necessarily that different if you do anything. If you do everything correctly, it doesn't make a difference. But because this is a marathon and I expect things to not necessarily go perfectly, I'm gonna go in down one E-tank instead of down two. And there's not much we can do about one E-tank unless we want to just go really slowly. And we're gonna get into this area by means of a nice cool space boost speedball chain.
Very nice that Doc intentionally designed those boulders there to be breakable by the speed booster as well. In a normal run, players would usually use missiles or bombs to knock them out.
Yep. And this whole area has some really tight ammo management. I'm coming into this is the first Zeta fight, and I'm coming in here with 6 super missiles, and it takes exactly 6 super missiles to kill. So there is very little room for error here. And I got the really bad pattern, naturally. And I got stuck facing right. Controller.
Ooh, missed a super.
Controller. My controller's been kind of playing games with me when it comes to that aim lock button lately. So we're gonna have to improvise a little bit there. We're gonna go back for that. Okay, we're gonna go back for it a second time. We're gonna ignore it.
Third time's the charm. Okay.
Third time was not quite the charm. Alright. So there are some very strategically placed save stations around here. We're gonna make use of that one 2 times. We're gonna refill right there. Then we're gonna kill a Zeta, and then we're gonna refill again. Alright. And this one's done in the dark. The charge is such a bad pattern because it keeps him... You can't shoot him during the charge. And he hides his weak spot for an extended period of time. So it just takes a much longer time to kill him if you get those charge patterns compared to any of the other ones. And in this portion of the game, there isn't... Right here, there is not actually a very strategically placed save point. So I need to be very sure not to get hit here, because we're trying to manipulate super drops.
Thankfully, this is just a gamma, so
Yep.
it's not quite as threatening as the Zeta.
Yep, I need 2 supers, and there's 2 enemies I can kill right there. 1, 2. So that lines up pretty nicely. And we're going to be doing more stuff in the dark. This is honestly kind of a stupid thing to navigate. But fortunately, I know exactly where to go. So I don't have to worry about it.
Wouldn't be a classic Metroid game without at least one morph maze, though.
Oh, absolutely. Original M2 did something very similar, but... From what I remember, it was even more annoying because you couldn't actually see the walls. You just...
Well, and because the physics in that were pretty clunky in a lot of places.
Yeah, for sure.
I enjoy the game quite a bit, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, I love them too.
Game Boy games did not have great physics engines.
Oh.
As a general rule of thought.
Ah, come on. Actually really annoying.
Oh.
That's okay, that worked out fine. It was just slow.
Alright, are we gonna see a Marathon Miracle Spark?
We unfortunately are not. It
Ah,
was very close, but
it was very close. You got the top half.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been dubbed the Miracle Spark because it is a very tricky.
Yeah, I don't even think it's consistent.
It's not really. It's not super consistent. You have to morph to within just a couple pixels of being underneath those spikes to manage to save the speed boost all the way through.
All right. Ay. I need to look into why that's happening, because that's actually causing some pretty serious problems. Alright, so now we're going into the power plant. This is a totally original area. There's nothing down here in original Metroid 2, but we've got this very foreboding remix of Lower Norfair. So we know that...
With some conveniently annoying placed bomb.
Yep. So we're looking for a super missile drop here. We did get it. Awesome.
Now, this section is technically optional in the full game run. This would be skipped in basically every any percent run, unless they're playing with some special rules. But since this is 100%, we're definitely going all the way.
Yep, we've got to come down here. There are... Hello, elevator. There are 2 items... No, sorry. There are 3 items we need to get down here, so we've got to go through this whole extended song and dance.
But a very entertaining one at that.
Yep, I really do like this segment. Going down, it's not quite so interesting, but on the way back up,
It's kind of building up to a point.
Yep, wow, way too early on that. So, fun fact about those: they are sloped, they're circular, and you still can't continue a speed boost off of them. You just bonk right into them. And now the traditional Metroid series escape sequence. And we've got another mini-boss here. If you like Moonwalk, there's a bit of Moonwalk going on here. Okay, good.
With a really jamming remix of the escape theme.
Yep. This is, I believe, the escape theme from Zero Mission.
From Zero Mission in Metroid 1, whereas Super and Fusion used the rhythm.
Yeah.
Nice ball spark up the elevator shaft.
Yep. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention, elevators going up are totally optional. In an ideal world, you will never see me take an elevator going up in this game. So now, this is my least favorite room. But if you're wondering, but John, you have a power bomb. Why don't you just power bomb it? And the answer is, I could. We actually used to power bomb this room until we found out that it lost 15 seconds. Because you need the power bomb for something else. And if you power bomb there, you have to go refill. And going to refill is really, really slow.
Yeah. An important note for power bombs is that they do not spawn as regular item drops. When creating it, Doc decided that would probably be too overpowered, which I would agree with.
Yeah, for sure.
They deal a ton of damage.
Yeah.
So you have to go to a save station to refill your power bomb.
Yep.
Or a power bomb pickup.
Alright. Making use of a super missile splash radius there.
You're normally supposed to speed boost up through those blocks so that you can then jump and shoot.
Yep.
The super missile.
So now, rather than having to navigate outside with 5 health, we have full health. And you can see that power bombs have a ridiculous explosion radius. And now we're going to be doing this whole bit.
Which normally on a first run, you would be going in from the top and kind of have to do a loop through the power down facility to get here. But since John grabbed power bombs before doing this, it's a lot faster to just walk in the...
Yeah, it's a lot faster. And this right here is the reason I am playing on 1.1.2. This boss right here. Because we kill this boss so fast in the speedrun, I hope we kill this boss fast in the speedrun. Yep. Yep. If you kill him during that first swoop attack in original 1.1, it loops forever. It doesn't end until we get Gravity Suit.
Yeah, for anybody who's played the game before and actually fought that boss, watching that segment there was probably pretty crazy. Normally what you're supposed to do is break those 4 outside panels using your missiles or super missiles or whatnot, so that you can then use your beam to damage that shield on the inside, then finally destroy the core. But because hitboxes are a thing and the knockback isn't crazy in AM2R, John was able to basically clip through those clip through those panels and just blast at the shield.
Yep. And now this is the shortcut that I think was only discovered because 2 of the people who helped playtest it were also speedrunners. There's no indication that those are super missile blocks. You can bomb, power bomb, destroy the blocks, whatever.
It's super hidden.
Yeah. There's actually one more shortcut like that in this area here that allows us to skip Gravity Suit, but obviously in a 100% run, we're not going to skip Gravity Suit. Underwater bomb jumping is a thing in this game, too.
And it is very powerful.
Nice. Yep. So this is the... what is this called? The distribution center.
The distribution center.
This is really dangerous area.
It is also completely unique to AM2R. The original Metroid 2 did not feature this area, or most of the upgrades contained within it.
Yep. So now we've turned on the power, and we've made way for the single most annoying mechanic in the game.
The energy spheres.
I would not mind them so much if they behaved consistently.
But they don't, and I've tried to figure out why, but I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, the equation, wow, someone is really cool outside. That was really ridiculously fast, holy crap.
Wow, they're actually behaving today.
No!
So,
good, it's fine.
So when those spheres are shot by an energy blast or by, say, a Zeta's little energy projectile there, they give off like an EMP field that'll actually shut down parts of Samus's suit and destroy any robotic enemies contained within the blast.
Which we're going to abuse
sometimes that can be used
in a couple spots.
Sometimes that can be used to our advantage, and sometimes it's just flat out completely.
Alright. Alright, so I have literally never gotten that strat in a run before.
Speedball chain.
I have literally never done that in a run before. This is the first time. We're just gonna do that. Oh! Ooh. Wow, what is it, motorcycle day today or something? So the thing about EMP balls is that they don't behave consistently. So
might be subpixel movement, I'm not sure.
I think from what I remember, it's something to do actually with the impulse function in Game Maker.
Oh.
And how it just is bad. I'm not familiar with Game Maker, so I'm not totally sure what exactly that could be, but...
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the impulse functions because, as a general practice, you don't want to use the built-in physics in Game Maker. AM2R was built over, like, what was it, 10 to 15, somewhere between 10 and 15
It's like 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. And it's gone through multiple versions of Game Maker. It was Doc's first real coding project, so it's kind of amazing to look at the engine and see a lot of these early programming mistakes done in it from back when he was beginning with it, contrasted with some of the much more well-designed stuff at the end, and seeing it somehow all work together to make a really fantastic gameplay experience.
Yep.
But the little EMP spheres are not the shining point.
No, they really aren't. We haven't been to any of the really bad ones yet. There are some that are really, really bad.
Those are only the ones that you have to backtrack for, right?
Yep. This is the first real backtrack. We've already been through here, but there's an upgrade here that we need Screw Attack for.
Oh, yeah, we got that.
Yep. And I'm also conserving a power bomb here, so I'm going to be making my way through these rooms without power bombs this time. And you can see again, shooting one of those EMP spheres just destroys all the enemies. Makes But it's a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes. Nice. Right, so now we're going to the cleanup section. This is basically where we're going to be backtracking to most of the parts of the game and picking up everything we couldn't get earlier or decided to save for later. And we're going to start right here in Area 3. This somewhat mysterious super missile door there. We got some power bomb blocks here. But at this point, from this point on, we're basically set on power bomb ammo. It's not actually going to be a concern ever again. I gotta take 2 at this trick. Nice. Good enough.
And even got the speed ball through the corridor.
This EMP ball is a pretty bad one. That was reasonably well behaved. It wasn't perfect, but that's alright. So there's also one other entirely new area that we're going to be going to here very shortly. So we've already been here, but we can use power bombs to blow open a somewhat suspicious path there and skip another elevator with a shine spark. This elevator actually moves pretty quickly.
It's pretty fast, but the shine spark is still substantially quick.
Yeah. And it takes a while for the elevator to actually spawn in the first place. So...
Right, so this is the GFS Thoth. It is the ship containing the search and rescue team, I believe.
I think so. Also mentioned in the original Metroid 2 handbook.
But never really explored in game.
Yep. And there's a little mini-boss here.
A suspiciously broken open tank there, leading to the elevation of the Genesis from just a casual enemy infusion to a full-out mini.
Yep. I try to collect the drops here. I don't think I need them, but... Hello, elevator. But unfortunately, although we can skip elevators going up, can't skip them going down. Yeah, that was really unfortunate. That's a surprise. That's a really difficult speedball just because there's no good cue for where the ground is. And that'd be a little lazy here. Just do the shine spark.
Doesn't lose that much time over the space boost.
No, because shine spark, ball sparking in particular, is the fastest method of travel, and over such a long distance, you know, it catches up.
One neat note about this elevator is that you can actually see parts of the level that you've already traveled through while going. One of those lovely little pieces of attention to detail that you find all over the design of AIM.
Yes. Alright, so now we're going to be doing a really kind of nifty series of shine spark chains all the way back through the tunnel, because we're heading back to Area 1. What I did with that. Okay, that didn't quite work the way I hoped. That's fine. I was kind of hoping to get under that block, but no biggie. Area 2 is right there, but we're not going to Area 2 yet. And then this is, I think, the only instance that we see of that in the 100% speedrun.
Yeah, that's more of a bug than an intended mechanic, but that little
yeah, the
ledge
vertical
grab with the
shine spark. I'm not totally sure why that happens, but
I think it's because that's I think that's basically the only spot in the game that has like a true slope right on the edge of the block. So you can grab it.
Yeah, there's one other spot where you can use it. I personally have never used it there, but
it may be a slightly misaligned slope. I'm not sure. I haven't looked.
All that effort just to mess up the spark. Oh well. Alright. Alright. So now, we've mentioned stutter sparking a little bit. This is the first really one where you absolutely need it. And I messed it up. That was dumb. No matter.
It's recoverable.
I got the hard part, and that's all that matters. So now we're going to be getting this E-tank that we saw all the way back when. Now we're going to get it. And then this is, in my opinion, the worst EMP ball in the game. Druid found a pretty good setup for it that gets it down here. That went really well. But
yeah, it has the capability to literally just fly through any of those doors and completely disappear. So you have to do it all over from the very top.
Yep. The setup works for the top half of the room. The bottom part is where it's really hairy.
This is a very fun Shine Spark puzzle in here. Actually, the only puzzle in the game that requires spring balls, to my knowledge.
Yep. Hello? Okay. Did not jump and morph there. Alright, so now we're mostly done with cleanup. There's still some parts of it left, but we're gonna save those parts for later. Alright.
Specifically Area 2, because it's significantly faster to do after you've gotten the gravity suit, correct?
Yes, partly. Also because it just...
No, I realized the actual reason.
Yeah, it's just faster to get to it later instead of now. We used to do it way back when. We used to actually do Area 2 cleanup with the rest of cleanup. Good power bomb. Alright, so what are we getting here? It's the gravity suit!
Dun dun dun!
So, gravity suit also has the nice side effect of negating these EMP fields.
Including the ones that come from the EMP spheres, but I don't think we'll see that much at this point.
No. This is the only area of the game that has these EMP fields everywhere, which I think is kind of a shame, because I think they're a really interesting mechanic. But, alright, let's see if I can get this. This isn't... No, never mind, I can't even come close. This spark is pretty precise, or it would be had I even gotten the spark. But that's alright.
This still has that tiny graphical issue with the spikes.
Really?
Yeah, they're basically misaligned by, or the tops of the spikes are misaligned by 1 pixel on the tile sheet. So, you can see underwater there's like a little tiny piece floating off of them.
Huh.
We only discovered that pretty recently. The water distortion disguises it pretty nice.
So this is what we affectionately refer to as the Alpha Squad. You get mobbed by 5 alphas. With super missiles, they go down fairly quickly, fortunately.
Low percent is where that gets really interesting.
Yeah, that's a real challenge in low percent. That's a little annoying. I didn't want that bubble over here, but that's fine. So we're basically going to be dealing with all of this area in one go.
Also, shout out to Chozo statues for being properly sloped on the top so you can conserve Shine Spark.
Yep. I've got enough supers. Alright, so these are the creatively named dual gammas. Yeah, I kind of botched that a little bit, but they go down fairly easily.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those are the only 2 gammas in the game that actually have 12 health instead of...
Yep, they have a little more health, but they move a little slower. Alright, so now we get the Ice Beam, finally. Ice Beam...
It's in an oddly powerful position comparative to other Metroid games. Usually Ice Beam is just kind of, oh, it's the little platform creating gun. But...
yeah, usually it's right at the start of the game, too. But in AM2R, it's right at the end.
Yeah, and it was in the beginning of the original Metroid 2 as well.
Yep.
That was a pretty big decision by Doc to change it as far as how it would behave in AM2R, how it would work with the flow.
Ideally, I would have more supers for this fight, so I think it's going to be a little slower than optimal, but... it's still not bad. I'll take that. I have no complaints.
And Sirius is down.
So just a little more item collection left here. Okay.
Ah.
That was funky. I don't know that I've ever had that happen to me before. But marathon luck, right? Alright. So there's still a ton more speed boost tricks that we need to pull off in this area. We're just going to do a cheeky little diagonal spark there. Save a little bit of time.
Because Shine Sparking into a downward-facing slope actually kind of sticks Samus into the slope a little bit.
Yeah, it takes pretty slow. Alright, let's see if we can... oh yeah, we beat the explosion down to the E-Tank. You can save like a tiny little bit of time by jumping. Oh, and you'll notice that I'm not deboosting through the spikes on the way back. That's because spikes only push you to the right when you hit them. And this is another cool little...
I didn't know that one was
here.
possible.
Alright. Gonna buffer a charge shot to open that door. Take that all the way out here. And that's... whoops. That is the last we're gonna see of Area 5.
Similarly to Zero Mission, I believe it is, Space Jump with the Space Jump reset from wall jumping is actually faster than just space jumping up.
Yep. Unfortunately, in Zero Mission and Fusion, you can't actually wall jump with Space Jump.
Oh, okay.
But
in
Super
sure
Metroid, that's very true. The Super
okay,
Metroid, you
it's
can
super.
wall jump.
I got that backwards then.
Yep. White screen. So we're going to try to keep a speed boost going through most of this area. Like, this whole area is basically just one big place to show off how awesome Speed Booster is. Yeah, right there, you can
And
upward spark.
indeed it.
Yeah, I got the really bad pattern on that alpha, but that's not a huge deal. Ideally, he won't move very far to the right. Whoops.
Oh, is that another misbehaving slope?
No, that was just me not holding right.
Okay. Yeah, there's one or two places in the game that, for whatever reason, won't let you store a spark.
Yeah, I think
It's not intentional.
Yeah, I think every spark has like a pixel where you'll just bonk into the slope. It doesn't happen very often, but like when it does, it's really, really annoying. Alright, so this is the apex predator of SR388, the mighty Omega Metroid, capable of destroying an entire galactic Federation kill team with a single swipe of its claw, and it's dead. That was, unfortunately, a really, really crappy Omega fight, but what are you gonna do? Yeah.
Yeah, the back spot's already really difficult to hit. But that little gap that opens when the Omega is doing a jump or whatever will allow you to do, what is it in this version, 3 times damage?
3 times the damage. So that is really, really overpowered.
Yeah. Little fun fact, in AM2R 1.0, Omegas had, I believe it was 40 health, and I think the backspot only did double damage.
You are correct.
Then in 1.1, because people really complained about the Omega difficulty, and Doc agreed that they were a little extreme, which some of the veterans disagreed with this, but, you know, they were nerfed to, I believe, having 35 HP, and the backspot did triple damage.
Yep. So, Omegas in the speedrun are pathetically easy nowadays. I'm gonna take another hidden little shortcut here.
It's only going to take 2 back shots and a front shot to take out the Omega.
And the front shots you get for free. And this is actually the Omega nest, so we'll be seeing plenty of Omega fights here. I really like this track. Have we mentioned just how great the music is in this game?
The music is phenomenal. Doc is, let's see, he has a studio, so he's a professional music producer, and he wrote almost all the tracks for AM2R. He definitely had. There's 2 of them that he didn't write, but that he had obviously a very heavy hand in making sure they fit with the rest of the soundtrack. Those 2 tracks would be the, or actually 3 tracks, would be the 2 variants of the Distribution Center theme and the credits theme. The Distribution Center theme, called Ancient Power, was composed by Torbjorn, and the credits theme, I believe, was done by Darren Kerwin.
Yep. Sounds right to me. I spent so much time trying to get that speedball, and I didn't quite get it, so that's okay. Alright. These Omegas...
Nice diagonal back hit.
These are going so much better than that first one.
That was a very clean Omega kill.
Yeah, the pattern was like a little slow, but I mean, I'm not gonna complain.
As long as they don't do the flamethrower, you're usually pretty.
The flame is really slow because their back weak spot does not get exposed by the flame.
And it's also just a really long attack.
Yep. Okay. Unfortunately, shot a super into the ceiling there, but otherwise that was a really solid Omega nest.
But the good news is, we don't really have to worry about super management until the next refill.
Nope, there is hardly any resource management left in the game at this point. There's actually hardly much of the game left in the game at this point. They're rapidly approaching the end here. And this This sequence of space boosts and sparks here is probably my favorite in the game. I'm gonna kind of focus on these because they are actually kind of hard.
The waterfalls in particular are notoriously difficult.
Yep, those are the ones I was referring to. Alright. No, no! Right at the end. I was home free. I just dropped a space boost, and a space jump, and that was it.
Still, managing to get it through the first 3 basins there is really impressive. That's some ridiculously tight space boost.
Yeah, those are really, really hard. I'm really disappointed I didn't get the last spark, but what are you gonna do? That was not even close. Alright, so now we're gonna go all the way back to Area 2 thanks to this transport pipe.
Which was added in 1.1,
Yep.
because previously there wasn't really a good backtracking spot to get to Area 2.
Yeah, Area 2 used to be really ridiculously out of the way. So, version 1.0 does technically have early power bombs, but I still don't think it's faster just because you don't have a good way to backtrack to this area. And there's our Varia suit. We're going to keep it on for just a little bit because it actually makes this puzzle just a tiny bit faster, since we can get carried by the water currents.
Interestingly, even if you have the gravity suit, the Varia suit gets applied over that when you pick it up. Because unlike in Super Metroid, suits don't stack, they kind of apply independently.
Yep. And honestly, suits not stacking actually works out better for the speed run, just because of that puzzle with the water. Alright, let me see if I can get this speedball trick. That was pretty close. No matter.
Yeah, I could tell from watching the pre-run practice that that's a very difficult one to pull.
Yeah, that's really hard. Alright, so this is maybe not the worst EMP ball in the game, but it's definitely the second worst. And it's also, fortunately, the last. Okay, that went reasonably fine. It's possible for the ball to just get stuck up there and for it to be just really stubborn about actually dropping down.
So the door was unlocked there, but he's coming back to it a little bit afterwards because it's faster to grab this item. Or these 2 items, actually.
Yep. These items are really well hidden. I think these are the 2 I did not find in my casual playthrough.
Worth noting is that the gravity suit nullifies the damage from these vines, so we don't have to worry about constant health draining. Like,
and even if we did, like, there's so much
you
health.
have so much health.
So I had to jump to shoot those blocks because the blocks on the floor are also super blocks, and you don't want to destroy those because then you can't get the speed boost. I messed that one up really badly. Speaking of speed boosts, but that's alright. Alright. So now we have all the items, and we can verify that by looking at the ammo count, which is something that I actually really like about this route. There is no uncertainty about whether or not you actually have 100%. Oh, get up, please. Thank you. Alright, so now we're in the genetics lab, which is kind of the equivalent of Torian. We've got the infant Metroids, as they're known. And something that's important to note is they drop exactly one super, so if I miss a super, I'm down a super for the queen fight, which is not ideal.
Not great. Another thing worth noting, and it'll be a little bit later on, but that is that the Queen Metroid's health scales with the number of, I believe, number of missiles and super missiles that you pick up.
Just missiles?
Just missiles? Okay. So being 100%, this is the most difficult the Queen fight can get.
Yep. Okay, sure. Alright, let's see if I can do this. We're gonna give it a few tries. That was close. This is a really tight spark. I really want to show this off, so we're gonna give this a few tries. I'm not quite there.
Almost had it.
I'll give it a couple more, and then we'll just kind of move on without it because it does look really cool. Oh, nuts! Okay, good enough. All right. Got the really, really hard part, and then messed it up. Oh well.
I think only Druid is able to pull this one off even close to alive.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten it several times, but
it's so tight.
It's really, really hard.
It requires the most stutters of any Shine Spark trick in the game that you guys have devised.
Yep. Alright.
A neat little detail in the Queen fight is that if she is lunging at Samus and gets hit with a super missile, the lunge will actually cancel if it's at the proper point.
Yep. So this is kind of some ammo management. I'm gonna be trying to use only missiles on these next two phases, because these next two phases you can kill with just missiles. Ooh, that was really close.
Yeah, the way the Queen battle works is that she'll lunge at Samus a predetermined number of times and then will stop to spew out those green blob things. So obviously we want to try to get the Queen in one cycle before she goes into that state because she's invulnerable until little green blobs.
And there's no real way to get this last phase in one cycle, so I'm going to use missiles on the first round and then save. I hope I get a bunch of super drops here. And I did. So remember that only 2 super drops can be on screen at the same time, so I had to kind of move through to collect those all in one go. And just for the marathon.
Yeah.
Just for the marathon. You actually get an alternate death animation for the Queen if you kill her with a power bomb like that. And you've got all this goop in the ribcage instead of her just kind of falling apart boringly, which, I mean, the power bomb is definitely slower, but
it's slower.
It looks so much cooler.
It's so much cooler. But it is a lot faster, and a regular speedrun just save a couple super missiles, blast those straight into her, straight down her gullet. But
so now we're having our nice idyllic escape sequence here, to contrast with the high pressure one from earlier. So fun fact: all these crystals were, I think they were planned at some point to be actually officially recognized as crystallized X-parasites.
That was the, from a couple design documents we found, because we were trying to, and actually did end up designing for the fan updates, a secret ending for 100% item completion. The original devs had planned that. We found a document that they had lying around somewhere on the, maybe on the blog, it was there. But anyway, they had planned for those to be like crystallized X-parasites, basically baby food. So once all the Metroids were dead, the idea was that they would start to, not have whatever process the Metroids applied to them to crystallize them, and they would basically revert back to X-parasites, and that's how they began to reinfect the planet prior to the events of fusion.
Yep. And that's the end of the game. More fitting way to end it than with a speed boost trick.
And that is time.
119.33. I mean, yeah, I'll take it.
That's not bad.
I'll
That's
take
not
it.
bad at all.
Yeah, there's. I definitely spent a bunch of time going for things that I shouldn't have just because they looked cool. But that's all right. Not a big deal. I am totally okay with that run. All right, so that is that.
And now we get to watch the lovely credit scroll.
Yep, and I really like the credits theme in this game. It's a really good remix of the original M2 credits music.
Yeah, huge shout out to Dr. M64, also known as Milton Gosty, and the entire rest of the AM2R team for literally taking 10 years of your life to just throw at this game, make a bit of a tribute, bit of a testament to the series.
Yep. This is honestly, it's such a phenomenally well done game, and like, I've been following this game since probably 2008. And for most of that, I was not actually sure it would ever get released, so I'm so unbelievably happy that I can be here and actually playing it, because I never thought I would be.
Fan games are rarely finished and released, and very rarely
Especially
are they done to the level.
Yeah, ones as
And
polished
very
as this.
very rarely are they done to such a level of polish that the parent company would say, "Hey, that's kind of conflicting with what we've got."
Yep. And thank you, Speed Gaming, for hosting this marathon. I'm really, really happy to be able to be a part of it, and for just how awesome this marathon is.
And also thanks to the people running the Metroid Marathon for putting this together, getting all the runners and stuff connected with Speed Gaming, serving as kind of the in-between point for us, and making sure everything runs smooth.
Yep. So that'll do it for us. I think. I don't think I've got anything else to say here.
Neither do I.
All right. So that's it. Now we're going to be going over. I think we're going to be moving over to Metroid Zero Mission 80% Hard, done by Eagle. And I'll actually be commentating that one too, so you get to hear more of me. Woohoo, I'm sure that's just what you wanted.
And I will be headed out. So have fun.
Thank you for the help, Logical.
Hey, absolutely a blast to be here. Thanks for having me. I'll be trying to hang out, catch some of the rest of the marathon. I will see you guys around.
All right.